Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a wild story about a king who pulls off an impossible victory only to make one single mistake, an act of mercy that's going to cost him everything.
So let's explore this. We're going to look at this intense siege where one moment of compassion, of maybe misplaced kindness, actually seals a king's doom. It's a really fascinating look at leadership and, the real weight of consequences.
Okay, so our story kicks off with just an overwhelming show of force. The city of Samaria is totally surrounded. And King Ben-Hadad of Aram, he isn't just there to fight, he's there to dominate. And get this, he brings 32 other kings with him, almost like an audience. First thing he does, sends a message to the cornered king inside, King Ahab. Ben-Hadad's demand is pretty blunt. Total unconditional surrender. It's not a negotiation. It's a declaration that he owns everything. And Ahab's response is honestly kind of shocking in its own way. He just completely caves. He basically says, yep, whatever you say, me and everything I have, it's all yours. But Ben-Hadad smells weakness, right? So he pushes his advantage. It's not enough for Ahab to just agree anymore. Now Ben-Hadad says his men are going to physically search the palace and just take whatever they want. For Ahab and his advisors, this public humiliation is just a step too far. And right here, Ahab finally finds his backbone. He sends back this incredible message, a piece of ancient trash talk that basically means, hey, don't celebrate your victory before the fight even starts. Well, this defiant reply makes Ben-Hadad furious. And while he's just sitting there drinking in his tent, he orders the attack. Just as things are about to get really violent, the story takes this sharp, unexpected turn. Some unnamed prophet shows up out of nowhere and tells King Ahab the impossible. This huge, intimidating army, it's going to be delivered right into his hands. He's going to win.
Now, the battle plan that comes with this promise, it is completely bizarre. The fighting force isn't the main army, no. It's this tiny group of just 232 junior officers. And who's going to lead them? Ahab himself. The timing? High noon. The exact time when all the enemy kings are in their tents getting drunk.
And just look at these odds. They're staggering. Israel scrapes together a little over 7,000 men, and they're up against what the text just calls a vast army, with 32 kings. It's an absurd mismatch. But the Israelites have a secret weapon, an enemy command that is completely wasted. And this absolutely bonkers plan works perfectly. The small force of officers leads the charge, the Arameans are caught totally off guard, and the surprise attack creates mass panic. Ben-Hadad's army just melts away, and the king himself has to flee for his life on a horse, barely getting away. Now the prophet warns Ahab that Ben-Hadad will be back. And sure enough, a year later, the Arameans regroup. Their officials, trying to make sense of this crazy defeat, come up with a theory. They only lost because they were fighting in the hills, where Israel's gods are strong. So they figure if they can just fight on the flat plains, their huge numbers will guarantee a win. It's a fatal miscalculation. So let's fast forward to the next spring. Ben-Hadad gets a new army together, just as big as the first one. And this time, they choose the battlefield, the plains of Aphek. The visual is even more dramatic now. The Israelites are described as looking like two small flocks of goats, while the Aramean army literally covers the entire landscape. Then, that same prophet shows up again with another message. He basically says that because the Arameans have completely misunderstood the God of Israel, thinking he's just some local god tied to the hills, their entire army is going to be destroyed just to prove them wrong. What follows is an absolute catastrophe for the Arameans. In a single day, the Israelites take out 100,000 of their soldiers. So much for that theory about fighting on the plains, huh? It was tragically, decisively wrong. And the disaster isn't even over yet. The survivors run to the nearby city of Aphek, trying to find safety. But then the city wall collapses right on top of them, killing another 27,000 men. The once mighty Aramean army is just gone, utterly annihilated. Ben-Hadad himself manages to escape again and is now hiding in some back room. His officials have one last desperate idea. They heard a rumor that the kings of Israel can be merciful. So they dress down in sackcloth, they put ropes around their heads, a sign of total submission, and they go to Ahab to beg for their king's life. And this This is the moment the entire story hinges on. After everything, the insults, the threats, 2 massive invasions, Ahab hears that his mortal enemy is alive, and his immediate response is, "He is my brother." It's a stunning, completely unexpected act of grace. No one saw this coming.
So Ahab brings Ben-Hadad up into his chariot. Ben-Hadad, sensing an opportunity, offers to return some cities and grant trade rights. But Ahab goes way further. He doesn't just spare him. He makes a formal political treaty with the very man God had delivered him for judgment. And then he lets him go free. But hold on, the story's not quite finished. Another prophet decides to stage a little piece of street theater. He disguises himself, waits by the side of the road, and gets ready to confront King Ahab about the decision he just made. As the king is passing by, the disguised prophet yells out with a story. He says he was a soldier in the battle and was put in charge of a prisoner, and his orders were absolute. If this one prisoner gets away, the soldier's own life would be the price. And then comes the punchline. The soldier in the story admits he failed. He says that, while he was busy here and there, distracted, negligent, the man he was supposed to be guarding just vanished. He failed at his one job. King Ahab, who has no idea he's being set up, listens to this whole story and delivers a really quick, harsh judgment. He tells the soldier that he has pronounced his own sentence. By his own words, he's guilty and has to pay the price. And then, wham, the trap springs. The prophet rips the headband off, and Ahab recognizes him. The prophet then reveals that the story wasn't about some random soldier. It was about the king. Ahab was given a man destined for judgment, and because of his own misplaced mercy, he let him go. The king has just judged himself. The story ends with this really powerful image. The triumphant king, the victor of 2 impossible battles, now goes back to his palace, not celebrating, but sullen and angry. His incredible victory has been totally erased, replaced by a divine judgment that was born from his own act of mercy. So, what are we supposed to take away from all this? Well, this story really forces us to think about that razor-thin line between compassion and responsibility. It leaves us with a really tough question, one that leaders still have to grapple with today. When does mercy stop being a virtue and start becoming a catastrophic failure of duty?